on my EP that's coming out in a couple months.
Really?
Yeah.
What would that be?
Well, I don't want to reveal the lyric because it reveals too much about
Right.
the song, but essentially the song's about the death of the rock industry, rock music industry. And Max Martin makes an appearance and he's like, "What's your problem? You're fine."
Oh, okay.
He's like, why are you bothering with this?
Which
like,
is
Max
great.
Martin, you don't get it.
I've heard he's a nice guy, so that seems to line up.
So do you think? I mean, obviously.
Oh, I'm sure he's a lovely dude and he's brilliant.
Obviously, the record industry is not what it used to be.
No.
But do you think rock is dead? Everybody's saying that.
Well,
I mean, you're trying to keep it alive.
I think rock is undead. I think rock was always dead.
Yeah.
That's sort of the point of rock.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I think the rock industry is fucked. When you have something like, and I'll probably regret this if I ever get super successful, but when you have something like Imagine Dragons winning rock awards, then yeah,
right.
shit's gone to pot. But
But if you look at a lot of the greatest rock records that we all know and love now, it's not as if they were winning tons of awards.
That's
at the
true.
time that they came out.
Well, I mean, the thing is, the rock used to be what was played on the radio. That was it. I mean, it was all the top 10 songs were rock.
But if you listen to a lot of like the greatest hits on the radio, it's not necessarily the stuff that's like timeless and that really gets to you. It's also, it was sort of the pop of rock.
Right.
That at the times that you hear on like greatest hits.
Sure.
So I just think it takes a longer time if you're just a little bit out of the norm.
Right.
So I'm gonna chime in here on this one. I have so I'm really into music history, and I've spent a lot of time nerding out about just different periods of time.
Well, let's nerd out.
The entire history of Western music, from when Gregorian chant became actual readable lines of music to when Bach actually tempered all 12 notes and gave us.
We don't have to go back that far.
Okay, great. So
the chromatic scale.
Here's the point of me saying all this. There has always been and will always be crap, and we haven't heard, the crap from the 16th century because no one wrote it down because it wasn't worth hearing, and we don't hear the crappy songs like that we're playing on the radio. You know how many songs Madonna has? Like, we haven't heard all of them.
Well, wait a second. Maybe we are hearing the crap from the 16th century. Maybe the stuff that it was popular, that's now, maybe Bach and Beethoven and all that shit, maybe that was the shit. And then there was like this underground, like glam symphonic music, like this punk symphonic music that's way better.
I wouldn't doubt that. That's entirely possible. But we'll never know, certainly.
Maybe like the Gregorian chants were the shit, and then there was like this amazing goth chanting.
Well, for instance, you have something like, I mean, this isn't music, but you have Shakespeare and Marlowe, for instance. And at the time, Marlowe was like the Taylor Swift of literature.
So does that make Shakespeare Imagine Dragons? Or what
no. I think Shakespeare was it took him a longer time to get somewhere.
Right.
He was sort of I mean, obviously by the end of his life he was so famous that he had his own theater, but it just took a longer time for him to get an audience, and now he's the one that people remember. So it's just, it's it's a strange
let's bring the writer in, because some people say he didn't write his own plays. Some people say that a bunch of different people wrote those plays.
I heard he was bi.
I've heard that too. Do you know about Shakespeare? Can you chime in on this?
I think
a lot of mysteries.
I don't think anybody will ever really know. I mean, every time something came out about, I can't think of the name of the artist with the Keane. Is it Keane? With the big eyes, the paintings with the kids with the big eyes.
Oh,
that the wife is really doing it, and I mean, there's all these. Everything comes out that somebody else is really doing it, and I don't know. I don't know that it matters. I think eventually history, makes its own tales and lies, and by the time we hear it, it's become like a folklore, and you just have to roll with it. I mean, I think I recently like geeked out again on Fleetwood Mac, which is one of my favorite, and on a side note, I'm a huge Heart fan, and they're actually feuding right now, and it kind of breaks my heart.
Oh, Heart,
the girls are feuding, and so I've seen both of them a number of times, but like you said, there's a ton of Fleetwood Mac music that you don't hear that really isn't great.
Yeah, you're not
You know
getting
what I
your
mean?
Tusk on the radio.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, no,
Yeah,
then
so-
there's the old blues Fleetwood Mac you never hear.
Right, and there's some good stuff in there too, but there's a lot that you don't hear.
Well, here's an
That's not
interesting
great.
story that actually I was reminded of. Is there was a composer, most of the time in the old days, it was either for Christianity or for the aristocracy. If
Right.
you either had to hire musicians to write for you because you had money or because you were the church and you were glorifying whatever. So there was this
Whatever,
prince,
God.
there's this prince in Italy called Gesualdo, and he was
Where
just,
is
well, this was in the 1500s. He's
Okay, go ahead.
long dead, but
Or is
At the CIA.
right, the CIA got him. So he was
The NSA
allowed
was
to
on
The
his
worst
back.
Where's Waldo joke I've ever done. Right.
he was allowed to write anything he wanted because he was the aristocracy. So he got to write anything. So he wrote some of the weirdest, darkest, creepiest music that you could ever imagine.
Waldo.
Gesualdo. And it preceded some of the most brilliant music of the 20th century by almost 500 years. And that was just because he was allowed to write whatever he wanted.
Right.
He also killed his wife because there was a law in Italy where if your wife cheated on you, you were allowed to murder her. And I think this was still a law until like 1975.
Oh, lovely.
Yeah, that's
Fun anecdote.
wonderful, wonderful.
Well, you know, I would argue that there's a similar system to that right now, where people can make a lot of incredible art because they're on their own, but they don't have the resources to get it out there. Whereas, you know, there is a system that is sort of like the aristocracy, and that it's just fueling stuff like pure pop.
Right.
You know, that's music for the masses.
Yeah, definitely.
That's very, very accessible. And I'm not saying I don't have any problem with pop. It's just it doesn't like
Well, I think
necessarily hit me the way that
Yeah.
other types of music hit me sometimes. Except, you know, well, actually, you know, there are some pop musicians that really get to me, but it's not always based in the same kind of need for depth that you can get in other genres of music a little bit more easily.
Well, speaking of depth, tell me about the new EP, and then could you please sing something?
Sure.
Yes. Well, tell me about the new EP first.
And then can I pee? I have to run and pee, so you can.
You,
You guys can talk about.
Did you want to run a pee now? And then,
No, I'll pee later.
Okay. Well.
I'll use it.
Because the show's running to an end, so it'll be like, and then you can pee all you want.
All right. Pee all day.
Okay.
Okay, so the new EP, well, first of all, I have a single coming out on September 21st called Creature.
And I'm going to go to the show.
Yeah, the show's at the Study, and there are discount tickets online, and it's going to be a really crazy show, and it's for a music video that I spent a year on.
Well, your shows are always crazy. You make sure that the crowd is.
I make sure that the shows are crazy, but this one's really, really personal to me because this video is so. Man, it was a lot of work.
Yeah.
It was a lot of work, and it's a lot of really, really.
Well, what took a year?
Okay, so I had these incredibly absurd visuals in my head that if I had wanted to do with the studio would have cost many hundreds of thousands of dollars, and I have like, you know, $300 in my checking account, so that's not going to happen. So I learned motion graphics, and I learned about like animation and special effects, and I shot with a green screen. I have friends who are camera operators. I have friends who are makeup artists.
Mm-hmm.
And I just kind of called in a ton of favors. I used every resource that I could muster, and yeah, so we shot it on green screen, and then, but because it was my first time shooting on green screen, we made a lot of mistakes,
Right.
and as a result, I had to do a lot of frame by frame keying.
Oh.
So I mean, it was thousands and thousands and thousands of frames with like hundreds of points on each that had to change each time.
Right.
So it was, you know, I made it millisecond by millisecond.
Wow.
And each frame is really complex. You know, the animations are really, yeah, they're pretty ambitious. It's a really ambitious thing. And then I work at a post house, so I was able to get help from people I work with and just say, hey,
Okay.
can you make sure this is, you know,
Post-production.
above the
for
line?
people.
Yeah, can you just make sure this is nobody's gonna laugh at it, and it's gonna be really beautiful. And I had, you know,